Hi, I'm Matthew List from the Rhodes Business School. A lot of young graduates starting work today ask what they should be doing about their financial planning. So I've put together a short presentation to introduce the subject, financial planning for Generation Y. So there we have the generations over the last 70 years. We have Generation Jones, then we have the baby boomers, that would be your grandparents, then you have Generation X, your parents. Generation Y are the millennials who are asking the question. The young children of today are Generation Z, and the next generation hasn't been named yet. We'll call them Generation Bieber. Now the problem is that the baby boomer generation have stuffed up their financial planning completely. They thought that they would retire secured with pensions provided by their employers, but they're going to be the first generation who are going to have to face it alone. So we have millions of baby boomers retiring with insufficient funds. Generation X are uncertain of the future and are playing catch-up. Generation Y, the subject of this podcast, are hoping not to fall into the same hole. So, carrying on. When we used to talk financial planning, we used to go as follows. We used to say, get educated over 27 years. Then you've got a period to fool around. Don't need to really get on with much. You can have your first marriage, your first kids, your first house, and your first divorce. You start accumulating funds when you are 35 to 65, when you have earning capacity from experience and a qualification. And then we can deal with your retirement planning later. So retirement planning advice for people getting started used to be go out and have a party and buy a house. Then you can get on with starting your financial plan when you're 35 to 40 years old. And don't worry too much about your pension, because when you retire, your employer will give you a pension fund and a medical aid. That just doesn't work anymore. The big problem that we've got all relates to debt. In 2008, we had the financial crisis. That was really caused by people having too much debt, and the bad habits still continue, where graduates take on too much debt when they get out of university. So when we look at financial planning today, things have changed. We still spend 27 years getting educated. Then we have the getting started phase, but it doesn't last for 10 or so years. We find people sitting in the getting started phase accumulating nothing from age 27 to 55. Then they try and accumulate a pension in 5 to 15 years, and that doesn't work, and then they live forever in retirement. What's changed? Well, family life has changed. For a start, when one gets qualified today, your parents haven't paid the whole bill, we have to pay it back, and if we add that to the debt that a lot of graduates take on immediately after graduation, they quickly land up in a debt trap. Then their first children arrive. Then their grandparents move in with them as they get older and they don't have a pension. And for some who are really unfortunate, even their grandchildren move in with them by the time that they're age 55. But the real kicker is when they get to retirement age, not only do they live longer, but employers no longer provide an automatic right to a life pension and medical aid. Today, when it comes to retirement, you are on your own. So we've got an unbalanced suspension bridge and a major problem that we need to deal with. Now, many graduates say, why don't I just go out and buy a house? You can't lose on property. Well, property prices haven't gone down. If you look at that graph, they consistently rise. But there are many myths about the South African property market. We saw a boom period in the 70s, which lasted for about 5 years. Then there were the doldrums of the 80s and 90s, where South African property basically did nothing. And then we had the famous spike, which happened between 2004 and 2007. Notice that that spike is now 7 years gone, and property hasn't done very much ever since. So when we come to property and the prospects for a graduate buying into the property market as soon as possible after graduation, which used to be the advice, we're now saying, look at the entry costs, all the costs of setting up a home, transfer duty, legal fees, etc. Then, very importantly, look at the change in holding costs, utility charges, rates, taxes, electricity. All of these have gone through the roof. They used to be a lot lower. And then finally, one must always look at an investment on the exit costs, and coming out of South African property is generally an expensive proposition. So what do we say to people today? Generation Y, there is no immediate rush to get into the property market. There are other issues that are of more concern. Let's look at employee relationships and the change over the last 20 years. So we have the employer who used to provide life cover, disability cover, and sickness benefits, together with a medical aid, which you paid 50-50, but it was comprehensive, it covered all costs. And then we have had a defined benefit pension fund, which allowed you to retire 60 to 65 years old with a guaranteed pension based on the number of years that you worked. Well, that's all changed now. Often life cover is not sufficient. Many employers go on the basis of 4 times annual salary is the life cover. Well, for some young people with families, that cover requirement can be as much as 16 times earnings. Medical aid today has been outsourced to the likes of Discovery Health, and employers say, go there and buy what you want. But finally, the biggest difference of all is that defined benefit pension funds are rarely provided today to the younger employee. They are given provident funds or even retirement annuity funds. The big difference is that employers are now presuming that there will be a career change. So we're not presuming that an employee will retire from one employer in a lifetime. So they say the choice is up to the employee as to which benefits you want. They'll give you an overall package or cost to company, and you structure it in, you will have to pay. Most important in all of this is to get the risks covered of living in the new South Africa. And for the young employees starting off, they really need to concentrate on life cover, disability cover, and sickness benefits coupled with a medical aid. Why? Simply put, a young employee cannot afford to fall short in the new South Africa. We have to keep our earning potential. That must be allowed to grow, and investment and building up wealth can come later. So starting off in financial planning today, it's not about starting a savings account or even a investment or retirement plan. The immediate priority is to assess your employer facilities and benefits, look at your medical aid, discover what disability insurance and permanent health insurance you might have, and then look at your life insurance requirements according to the size of your family. Those must be put in place as the first step in financial planning today. Then finally, we will get onto a retirement plan when we have to look at the stark reality that for every year that you're going to work, you will probably be retired. This is all an international phenomenon which is causing much stress in families today. A young graduate's got to look at it like this. I'm the domino family. Today I'm one domino, soon to be joined by a spouse. Then we will have 3 children called money, and even more money. That's the traditional old family that we used to have. But today we're going to put 4 dominoes on top. That is 2 sets of grandparents who are baby boomers and probably don't have enough money to see it through to their retirement. This is putting more and more stress on the 2 dominoes in the middle. And the problem is that if they start to wobble, then the whole house comes cascading down. And that's what we're trying to avoid in this presentation. So the moral to the story is, why did Generation Y get educated in the first place? That was so that they could look after themselves. But they have to realize that if there is one disaster, there's a domino effect that affects an entire family. And for that reason, financial planning in Generation Y is really a question of get your risks of living in a new South Africa covered as soon as possible. I'm Matthew Lester at the Rhodes Business School. Thank you for your attention.